Right, hello everyone. This is Remleiz from 40k Theories. Naerina, that's your cue to talk. You might want to take yourself off mute rather.
God damn it, how difficult can this be? Oh, yeah, this is Naerina, also from 40k Theories. I'm there like, click, 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 come on, unmute, unmute, unmute.
Oh dear, oh dear. Right, first things first, can everyone hear us okay? I hope so, at the very least. It's our first time actually doing a public stream. We've tested the waters somewhat with Patreon supporters. So hopefully everyone can hear us absolutely loud and clear. So yes,
I hope so.
Hope so, yeah. So firstly, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us. So yes, today we're going to be taking a look at a 40k fan theory iceberg. Now this is actually an iceberg that was sent to us from a Patreon supporter. So firstly, thank you Who Dat for that. That rhymed. I'm a poet and I don't know it. Terrible joke. I don't know. I don't care. But it's late in the afternoon and it's very hot today. Screw it. Yes.
Welcome to Finland. We haven't had anything hot since, I think, last August. So if you wish to have the cold temperatures here, welcome to Finland.
Welcome to Finland, indeed. Something, satana perkele, and all that.
Oh, very good, very good.
I'm brushing up on my finish.
Mm-hmm. Indeed, learning the swear words as you should.
As one should. That's the first point of learning any new language. You always learn the dirty words first. But anyway, we digress. So, firstly, we're going to start at the top of the iceberg, the Rebute Gilliman tier. So, Naerina, can you please read off the first one for us, please? Because I just noticed that the overlay from the stream has actually cropped the top of the image, so apologies for that.
That's all right. That's all right. I do believe you mean the Legion of the Damned are the drop-side spirits.
Right, so this fan theory stems from a certain passage from the Horus Heresy novel Master of Mankind, in where the Emperor was fighting against the legions of Draknien. There's a bit where it says, there's shapes ranging in the flames, the betrayed dead of Istvan, ghostly space marines wreathed in fire and all that. And let's be honest, ghostly space marines wreathed in fire, it sounds a lot like the Legion of the Damned to me. So I can understand why, this is the thing. I mean, we actually used this in our Legion of the Damned video, a few years back. Though apparently, I don't know if this is true, but apparently Aaron Dembski-Bone has actually gone on record saying that it wasn't actually his intention for them to be so similar to the Legion of the Damned. It was just, a coincidence. I don't know if that's actually true or not. I just remember hearing that offhand, from a second-hand account and all that. So if it's true, then it's a very good coincidence, but you could take it as them being Legion of the Damned, because again, ghostly space marines on fire. It's the Legion of the Damned, isn't it? So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm going to chalk this one up to pretty much very, very plausible, personally. What about you?
Yeah, I think so too. And besides, we have something like the Thousand Sons, for instance, and what happened to them, this kind of ghostly, warpy things. And if we think about, for example, the living saints of the Emperor, and them possibly being Emperor's demons, etc., etc., etc. So I would think this is very much plausible.
Very good. Okay, next on our list, please.
Alpharius and the Alpha Legion are loyal.
Oh, Alpha Legion are always fun, aren't they? Because no one knows what the fuck's going on with the Alpha Legion. And if anyone...
Neither does the Alpha Legion, I'm pretty sure.
Exactly. And if anyone says they know exactly what the Alpha Legion's doing, they are lying to you. Because not even the authors know what's going on with the Alpha Legion.
Indeed.
Because do you remember in Sons of the Hydra, there was that one member of the Alpha Legion who's actually, a worshipper of the Imperial cult and all that? Like, he actually worships the Emperor, which is kind of funny. But, yeah. I think this mainly stems from the fact that in Legion, the Horus Heresy novel, the Alpha Legion basically sided with Horus to save the galaxy. So you could argue that they're loyal in that sense. But...
they have loyalist tendencies.
I think that's a better way of putting it, yeah, because at the end of the day, they still turn against the Imperium, even if they did so for the best of intentions. Like, we're turning against the Imperium just so we can save the entire galaxy. So, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say they're loyal, but it's complicated with the Alpha Legion, because they do one thing, and then you expect them to do something else, but they do something completely different. What's that old Roddy Piper quote? Just when everyone thinks they have the answers, I change the questions.
Could very well be. Or the Meatloaf quote, I would do anything for basically anything, but I won't do that, whichever thing you're expecting.
Quite so, quite so. So,
Yeah. But this like reminds me, or not even reminds me but this makes me think, if Altharius and the Alpha Legion are loyal, what about Omegon?
fun enough, Omegon is mentioned later on in the Iceberg.
Oh god, yeah, oh god.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh god.
we have a super chat from Ali2567, thank you very much, who says, in their opinion, the Alpha Legion itself is split at this point. I think that's most likely, because the Alpha Legion themselves don't know what the hell's going on, so it's pretty safe. It's pretty safe to assume that some are working still on the Alpha Legion's original plan of trying to stop chaos, aiding chaos to save the universe by having it eat itself, whereas others are like, well, we're traitors apparently, so screw it, we're traitors.
Yeah, absolutely. And like from the point of view of the Alpha Legion, if you're trying to find out who among yourselves are traitors and who are not, it's like playing a 40k version of Lupus in Tabula, you know the werewolf game, like trying to find who are the traitors. Which would be an excellent marketing thing for James Workshop, for instance. See, I'm not afraid to say James Workshop, unlike Neve is. Hi, Neve. But like honestly, this kind of werewolf game and just having Alpha Legion there, that would be just lovely.
See, I'm just reminded of Carmen Sandiego. You know, it was like, which
yeah.
of the Alpha Legion are the loyalists, are the traitors, something. I can't sing. Anyway.
Alpha Legion, more than meets the eye.
God, I love Transformers.
I know, that's why I sang it to you.
Oh, thank you. Speaking of Alfarius, the Alfarius tier is next. So, what we got up first?
The Minotaurs are loyalists, loyalist iron warriors.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much a common consensus in regards to, like, their tactics and their psychology and all that. And there's also found that in the Imperial Armor books, the Minotaurs were outright confirmed to have, quote, chimeric gene seed, which was either spliced together from two different sources, or it was drawn from a forbidden source.
Ooh.
And we got a very delayed reaction from the Streamlabs thing saying about the super chat. I was a bit confused, like, why is it gone beeping? Oh, dear. But yeah, apparently there was someone who says that they used to work for Forge World who said that internally they were confirmed to be, but I don't know if that's really can be taken as fact, considering, like, you know, if there's someone who used to work there, they don't work there now, so can you really take their opinion as being 100% concrete? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I do really like the idea of them being Loyalist Iron Warriors, as in, like, you know, a chapter founded using Iron Warrior stock specifically, rather than actually being made from, you know, Loyalist Iron Warriors who are remnants, that kind of thing. But yeah, they actually brought that argument up in our video on the Minotaurs years ago as well, so go check that out if you haven't already.
Yeah, indeed.
Right, next up we have...
Orks keep the Emperor alive. How?
See, I'm not too sure about this one. I mean, I know the Warfield and the Orcish power of belief, you know, has the power to, like, you know, do crazy shit and all that. This, I find it to be a bit of a stretch, because the problem is, a lot of people tend to overemphasize just how powerful the Warfield is. I mean, don't get me wrong, it can be extremely powerful, because in the novella Chains of Golgotha, Yarrick said that he could basically feel it radiating off of the Orcs. He could feel the Warfield. But I don't think it could be capable of keeping the Emperor alive, because the problem with the Warfield is that it has to affect more or less the immediate vicinity. Like, at most, it'll probably affect a world. At most. And that's only if there's, like, an absolute shit ton of Orcs on it. Like, you know, somewhere like Armageddon, for instance.
Yeah.
I can't imagine... you know, Orcs keeping the Emperor alive all the way on Terra. You know what I mean?
Yeah, kind of like... I think they should be present. For instance, what would be an interesting theory, just to go off the deep end, I haven't checked if it's on the list, I don't think it is, but if the Orcs, you know, came to Terra, and for some reason got into the, you know, throne room, and just for even weirder reasons started to believe that, yeah, the Emperor can get up from that chair. Could he get up?
I have absolutely no idea. See, again, like, the Warfield is very, shall we say, inconsistent in regards to how it's written.
You don't say, you don't say.
I do say. To be honest, I think the book that demonstrated it best, best, bear in mind, not the same as going into the most detail, that demonstrated it the best was The Beast Arises, because they actually, like, experimented on a dead orc and went like, hey, see this orc weapon? It doesn't work when we try it. Stick it in the hand of this dead orc, it works now because of the residual Warfield. Oh. Like, I know the Ghazghkull novel went into a lot greater depth, with the whole mycelial network kind of thing that Nate Crowley came up with. I love that idea. So someone commented, everything in 40k is inconsistent. Now, don't we know it?
Indeed.
But yeah, I find the idea of the Orks keeping the Emperor alive very, very, very unlikely, personally.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're not even that deep in this whole thing.
We're not that deep yet. We're taking the plunge now. We're going underwater with the Malkador tier.
Oh, goodness gracious. Please save us with your perpetualness. So, the Emperor was a Dark Age weapon.
I assume by Dark Age weapon they mean the Dark Age of technology and not, medieval times.
Medieval Dark Ages, yes. This trebuchet over here.
But fine enough, apparently, to use the term Dark Ages for medieval times is actually a misnomer this time around, apparently.
Really?
Yeah, apparently. Super chat from Chris. Thank you very much, Chris. If the Alpha Legionnaires drink Alpharis' blood, is Alpharis effectively back? Isn't there a large stock of his blood? Oh. That's something from Praetorian at Dawn, one of them drinking his blood to basically, gain his memories. I think that gaining his memories is mainly in regards to, the omophagia organ. Ow, my wrist just went click. Ow, sorry about that. The omophagia organ, which basically allows, Space Marines to, read the memories of the dead and all that. And I know it's not necessarily dead if he's drinking someone's blood, but even so.
Yeah, well, if they can eat, the flesh of people just to gain their memories, so no.
Yeah. In regards to there being a large stock of his blood, you could argue that any Space Marine that actually has Alpha Legion Gene Seed does technically carry his blood to an extent, you could argue. So, but then again, you could also argue it's incredibly diluted at this point. So
you would get only flashes.
Yeah. The thing with Alpharis is again, Alpha Legion and Alpharis is incredibly, I suppose, not necessarily complicated, just convoluted in terms of lore a lot of these times.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you could argue that, in essence, he is back, even if it's not actually Alpharis. You could argue that, in essence, he is back, is temporarily. It's I suppose kind of how sanguinary priests have the blood of Sanguinius injected into their veins. Something to that effect?
Yeah.
But yes.
Momentarily there.
And again, the Streamlabs very, very late in regards to letting us know about the super chat.
Yeah, sorry about that, because when I first started listening to this whole chat, when Rem started saying hey, unmute yourself, it was first time when I had it hello everyone, yeah, this is coming in way late.
Right, anyway, back to the first bit of the iceberg, the Emperor being a Dark Age weapon. I think this has been...
by whom?
Well, there's that. But I think this has been pretty much debunked, considering that, from Alanius Pius' own memories, the Emperor was present for the destruction of the Tower of Babel. So he was clearly around long before the Dark Age of technology.
Yeah.
And there's also the fact that he was pretty much confirmed to be, Alexander the Great in the Siege of Terra novels. So I think that's safe to say this one's a no-go, I'm afraid.
Yeah, sorry. Weapon in his own right, to be sure, but not a Dark Age weapon.
Exactly.
Yeah. Next one?
Yes, please.
The World Eaters were Khorne's third choice.
I've never heard this one in my life.
What would the two, the first and second one be then?
I think the first one would have been the Blood Angels, I would assume. because blood angels, they
Blood
drink
for the
blood.
blood, for God. Yeah.
Second choice, if I had to guess, maybe Space Wolves. I don't know.
Perturabo.
Now, apparently Perturabo was Nurgle's first choice, but I don't know if this is true. But I have a vague recollection of Perturabo basically having Nurgle come up to him and say, like, hey, would you want to be my legion? And Perturabo said, fuck off.
Aww.
Which, if that's true, then, absolute Chad Perturabo.
Yeah, like he would have been someone's first choice.
He would have been for once. But anyway, aside from the idea of Sanguinius being, Khorne's potential first choice, I don't necessarily see them as being, the World Eaters as being, the third choice, necessarily. Because I recall in the audio drama Butcher's Nails, where you had the Word Bearers and the World Eaters teaming up to fight some Eldari Corsairs. And the Corsair Prince, who confronts Angron and Lorgar, says that he must kill Angron because he cannot allow Angron to become the Blood God's son. To which Lorgar basically went, oh shit, you're the one who's being picked by Khorne? Nice, kind of thing. And then Angron just kills him. The Eldari, not Lorgar. God, if only he killed Lorgar, that would have been funny.
Oh, I was imagining how would have this whole thing gone if Angron just killed Lorgar.
It would have been more interesting. Well, not necessarily more interesting, but it definitely would have been interesting, if nothing else.
Hazardous, at the very least, at some points.
Right, let's plunge a little deeper into the Kroot tier. And I just noticed I've not actually been updating the actual pictures. So where are we now? Is it this one, the fourth one? There we go. Right, so got a little red outline now. I should have been doing this from the get-go. My bad.
Hey, you're getting there, there.
I'm still learning when it comes to streaming.
Indeed. Well, you know much more about it than I do because you've done it way more many times than I have because I've done it 0 times.
I've done it twice.
I've been, as a guest on some streams, but never streamed myself. But yeah, the Kroot are guarding the following statement. The Emperor planned the Horus heresy.
I think this one has been pretty much confirmed, but it wasn't supposed to go as bad as it did, if that makes sense. The Emperor planned for there to be some kind of purging of the legions, because once the Great Crusade ended, it was supposed to go the way of the Thunder Warrior, from what I recall. Yeah. But the problem is that chaos got involved, and that was a factor that the Emperor didn't actually take into account. And
the Emperor should have taken it into account when you think about what sort of things Chaos Gods have been up to and what sort of things I'm pretty sure that the Emperor should have known at that point about chaos.
He should have done, but if there's one word to describe the era... I can't talk. If there's one word to describe the Emperor, I'd say arrogant. He was arrogant in his own power and arrogant in his own ability. He believed himself to be right, I'm going to be the person who saves humanity. I'm going to be the one who stops chaos. I'm going to be the one who, accelerates the evolution of humanity into a species that, can avoid chaos altogether. And it all bit him in the arse in the end. Because he didn't take into account things such as, human fallibility and stuff like that.
Yeah, and when one thinks about, the amount of stuff that he told his sons of his plans, which was jack and shit, basically, I think that at least partially came from his own hubris, yeah, it's me who's the chosen one. It is I who can do this, blah, 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 blah. I just created these sons that, I would have an army or a lot of armies and a lot of generals for my armies. And you kind of forgot the human factor in it because the humanity of these sons, these Primarchs, or at least the kind of human feelings that they had ultimately, led them to turning to chaos, or at least for some of them, that led to that. From my point of view. Yeah,
as someone in the chat just said, you can say that the Emperor has a messiah complex, which doesn't really help in regards to, accusations of godhood and all that, does it?
Indeed, he's not the Messiah. He's a very naughty boy.
Hey! I understood that reference.
Yay! And I was like, yes, I can say it now. But yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Emperor did plan Horus Heresy, at least that it would happen, but not the scale of it. Not the scale of it for, at that... he had no idea how tits up everything would go.
basically there was a whole bunch of factors he didn't take into account because he was too, he was too cocksure. He was too sure. No, it's gonna go this way. No, it went this way. Oh fuck. How do I correct this? Damn it! This is all Magnus's fault somehow.
Yeah, and it's then like I can imagine him being there, like, yeah, I have a plan. Let's like kind of like in the Terminator movies, like, yeah, let's launch Skynet. And it's like, wait, we had a very good idea, but we didn't plan this through. So what can we do? We kind of just like plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E, etc. And some of them work partially.
Don't worry.
Not all of them as planned.
Don't worry. We learnt from the Skynet issue. Here's Legion. And it went exactly the same. But we don't talk about the new Terminator films because they're crap.
Indeed. I haven't even seen them.
Yeah. Do yourself a favour and don't. Anyway, next one.
The Crota also guarding the following statement. Ferrus found the Necrons first.
I think it's pretty much a given at this point that Medusa is a tomb world. Whether it's active or not, it's a different issue. It's probably not given the immense tectonic instability that Medusa suffer from, it's like, with all the earthquakes and volcanic eruptions and all that. But when Ferrus was still a wee lad, wandering across, the plains of Medusa and all that, he ended up finding a complex that contained the Azianoth, which he freed from its imprisonment. And the Azianoth, the way it's described in Angel Exterminatus, is pretty much the same as a canoptek tombstalker or tomb guardian. Like, giant robotic centipede thing. And the actual chain bit was like, black stone with like green pulsating lights. Like, yeah, that's pretty much, a tomb complex and all but name, let's be blunt. So,
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say he found them first, because there was bound to be someone who found, like, remnants of a Necron tomb complex on some planet somewhere. But he was definitely one of the first major characters to at the very least. Why can't I talk? He was definitely one of the first major characters who, at the very least, encountered something Necron related.
Yeah, like I'm imagining this kind of wee lad Ferrus, as in honestly wee lad, just going about his business like, oh, I found a cave, how wonderful,
Wee man,
and just like looking at these sleeping robots like, oh, that looks weird. Anyway, bye.
And to which we say bye to the Kroot and move on to the next tier, which is the Nathaniel Garrow and Lord of the Flies tier. So we'll just call it the Garrow tier.
Okay. On the Garrow tier we have the Emperor was created by the Old Ones.
I find that unlikely, to be honest. Considering that, in the old Road Trader era lore, the Emperor was, created through the mass suicide of the shamans and their souls coalescing together to create an entirely brand new entity and all that.
I remember that from the TTS, recap of the, 40k history.
Yeah. And as Gav Thorpe himself once said, if something from the older days isn't directly contradicted by something new, then it's still relevant, it's still valid, it's still effectively canon. So, yeah, unless something's come out to contradict that origin story, the shaman origin story, that's still canon. So, there you go.
Yeah, so, not the old ones, but old geezers like shamans.
The old shamans did it, there we go, the old shamans.
The Emperor was created by the old shamans. The older ones, yes.
The elder ones.
Elder ones, oh yeah. As long as they're not the eldritch ones, I'm very happy about that.
No. And speaking of
Elder,
we got Eldar now. Hey.
Indeed. What a segue to this one, which is the Eldar created their pantheon.
See, if you go by Liber Chaotica Slanesh, this is true. Because in Liber Chaotica Slanesh, you have a Sigmarite priest from Warhammer Fantasy who's basically like seeing all these visions from the realm of chaos, all the histories of alternate universes and all that, and he sees the war in heaven between the old ones and the Necron tier, which are referred to in this as the first ones and the Ingir. The Ingir being the Eldari term for Necron.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah, more you know. And he says that he sees that the first ones are creating weapons in the warp that eventually gain sentience, and they basically became the gods of the Asuria, basically like the Warhammer Fantasy term for elves, the Asuria. So, if that's actually fact, then this statement's true. But the problem is that it's being told by a Sigmarite priest, first-hand accounts, they're inherently unreliable, especially when it's coming from a character who doesn't know what the fuck's going on, because it's someone from Warhammer Fantasy looking on an event from Warhammer 40,000. So it's like, this is going to be very confusing. And also, you got to take into account, visions from demons, they're inherently untrustworthy, because, demons, deception, like, it's going to do this so you can fall to us, blah, 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 ooh, spooky, and all that. But on the off chance that the visions are indeed accurate, then this statement is indeed true.
Yeah. And I was thinking the fact that basically they did create Slaanesh with their actions, so at least partially creating their pantheon.
Yeah. And you can also say, Iniad as well. So yeah, they did create Iniad. So technically, yes. Either way, it's technically yes.
At least partially.
At least partially.
So Garrow knows things, goodness gracious.
He does indeed, right. The next tier, which is the Demon Corvus Corax tier.
Demon Corvus Corax always sounds like, okay, what sort of a freaking chocobo or emo chocobo we're going to get from that.
I'm gonna bully Lorgar. There we go.
Oh, God. Just remember to sing it in minor, like the next time. But yes, our darling little emo chocobo over here is guarding the following statement. And now I'm trying to say these numbers correctly because Roman numerals are difficult. The 2nd and the 9th are still alive.
Well, Sanguinius is definitely dead. We can get that off from the get-go. I assume they mean 2 and 11.
Yep. I think it should be goodness gracious. English. Goodness gracious. English. Anyway, you were saying.
Something Satana Perkele. When all our folks say Perkele. Hello to everyone watching from Finland.
I know at least one of them is from Finland because I see my friend over there. Hello there, dearie.
Also, just want to say your description of Demon Corax as the emo chocobo, perfect. But yeah, this partly comes from the short story Chamber at the End of Memory, I believe, when Rogal Dorn is helping to do the final stages of fortifying the Imperial Palace, he discovers these 2 rooms marked with the sigils of the 2nd and 11th Legions, and he's like, the fuck? And notices that the entire thing's like booby-trapped with psychic minds. It's like, right, we're gonna open it, and then Malkador's like, no, you're not allowed. Why not? I'll tell you why. And then he tells him, and Rogal Dorn's like, oh yeah, if they were with us now, then yeah, we would have lost. Kind of thing. So, considering that there's chambers with their numbers on them and no one's allowed inside and they're booby-trapped, that has led to some speculation about them still being alive, as well as that in the 9th edition Custodian Codex, there was the introduction of Subject 11, which some people think must be the 11th Primarch, Subject 11 and all that. Personally, I find it unlikely, but that's not to say this is entirely without merit. There is some merit to this, but I think it's more likely for them to have both been, killed a long time ago. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if, they had been killed, but some of their essence, their blood or something, whatever, was still somewhere in stock. Just for shits and giggles.
I mean, I'm sure their gene seed stocks are still somewhere within the Terran gene vaults, just under lock and key saying, do not open, do not watch, do not rewind, only keep for legal purposes or something, I don't know.
Only keep for homebrew purposes.
There you go, yes. But, yeah, I think it's not entirely without merit, but I personally find it unlikely, but again, that's with me.
Yep. I'm there okay, if the 2nd and the 11th were to be alive, they would be in those same vaults, under lock and key, in stasis, like, we're never going to wake these people up unless X, Y, and Z happen. Unless Trazyn has them for some reason, but most likely not alive.
No, I don't think Trazyn has any of the Lost Primarchs, purely because when he was given the clone of Fulgrim, he actually turns around and says like, "Oh, I always wanted a Primarch." So that suggests that the clone of Fulgrim was the very first Primarch he actually got. So I'm speaking hyperbole, not hyperbolically. Paraphrasing. That's the term. Paraphrasing.
Yeah. Well, like, I really love the fact that we both are here. Like, wait, what's the word? What's the word? English. What doesn't it
What's
work?
What's the word? Berkeley. Hey.
Yeah, Berkeley is always a good word.
It is always a good word.
Yeah, and now everyone knows a Finnish swear word. Yay!
Yay, indeed. For everyone who's just joined in the chat recently, first of all, thank you very much for joining us. And yes, this is indeed our very first live stream. We've actually got a brand new rig, so we can actually do proper live streams now. So in the future, we'll also plan on doing some live streams of some 40k games, such as like, Legacy of Dawn, Space Marine, Dawn of War, etc. So yeah, feel free to join in when we go round to doing them. Get round. I can't talk. I don't know. I'm not very good at this because I have a very bad way of speaking. Anyway, excuse me.
Like, it's not like you make your living by speaking into a microphone or anything, but oh well.
Just because I do doesn't mean it's easy.
Very true, very true. As a person who has to edit her own audio before I send it to you for more editing, yeah. For those people who don't know the behind the scenes of everything, usually whenever I do any recording, I get double the amount of audio that you guys end up hearing because I make so many mistakes.
So do I, don't worry. We just got a super chat from Voice of the Emperor, thank you very much. Should Rabute and the Lion trade their shield and sword? I honestly think that line won't work better with one. Grandpa Smart is the shield. To be honest, I never liked the idea of Rabute Gillum having the Emperor's sword to begin with. I always found that a bit like, oh, you're giving him the Emperor's sword, really? Kind of thing. I mean,
yeah, I think it would work better. Like, those weapons, if they were switched, they would suit those two people. But if we think about it from the story point of view, I think, well, of course, I bet this is not canon or anything. I think would be an interesting take about this, or with this, would be the fact that, okay, Rabute, more of a shield person, Lion, more of a sword person, but they have to learn to see each other's perspectives.
The problem I have with Gilliman having the Emperor's sword to begin with is, as someone in the chat just pointed out, it made sense when it was just him. Yes, I agree. But again, the problem was they could never keep consistent how he got it in the first place. Because like in Rise of the Primarch, he got it from Belisarius' Call. In the first iteration of Dark Imperium, he got it after meeting with the Emperor. And in Dawn of Fire, he always had it on him when he was in stasis anyway. Which I think that's actually now the bit they're going with after they redid Dark Imperium. But personally, I think, like, if you're going to give him the Emperor's sword, have him get it from the Emperor himself. That just makes more logical sense to me. Like, it made no sense for him to have it on him when he went into stasis to begin with, because, like, you then have to ask, okay, so why didn't you just kill Fulgrim with it to begin with? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
But anyway, but yeah, long story short, yes, they would work better if they had the weapon switch because, Lion has the firstborn son. Okay, yeah, that makes a bit more sense, but, again, as someone pointed out, it made a lot more sense when Gilliman was the only one around, so, which makes you wonder, like, if have another Loyalist Primarch come back, what the hell do they get? Because one's got the sword, one's got the shield. What's he got? The codpiece. I don't know. The codpiece.
Woof.
Lord Flash. Hey, we've got Lord Flashheart and Necromunda, so you can give him the Emperor's codpiece. Woof.
Oh, God. I was about to say, just if we want to make it weird, let's give Korax a mace or something.
And segueing back to the Korax tier. Next one, please.
Yeah. Quef to all the audience from the from the emo chocobo that states, "The old ones created the Tyranids."
I never liked this one. I never liked this one personally because let's think about the Nids. What do the Nids primarily do? The Nids primarily, harvest biological matter. They tend to focus primarily on organic foes. And if the Nids were created as a bioweapon, then they would have been created very late in the Old Ones' war against the Necrontyr. But by the time the Old Ones were losing that war, where they would become desperate enough to create such a weapon, the Necrontyr had become robots. They become the Necrons. So what's the point of creating a weapon that primarily focuses on the biological against a mechanical foe?
Yeah, I was thinking about the same thing. Like, if they had been biological, yeah, to be sure, like one could expect someone to come up with, hey, let's create a compost kind of thing that will eat anything. But when it comes to this kind of robot thing, it's like, well, why would you create something like that? If you put metal into a compost, it won't do anything.
I mean, something about needing more iron. I don't know. I mean, you could maybe argue that they were created as ages and ages and ages ago as a way to wipe the galaxy clean so they could start again. So they go basically full Thanos on the galaxy. But that just doesn't seem to fit with what we actually know in regards to the Old Ones, because the Old Ones were known for uplifting other races as well, because they uplifted the Eldari, the Jakaro. They were implied to have uplifted the Hrad as well. They created the Lizardmen in Warhammer Fantasy as well. So,
yeah.
Funny enough, in Warhammer Fantasy, they also created the elves, the dwarves, and I think humanity in that setting as well. But I'm not too sure about it. But I know they created the elves in Warhammer Fantasy.
I was just thinking, if you want to wipe something clean, why did you go through protecting this kind of already doomed, galaxy with the creation of Orks?
Exactly, considering the Orks were themselves the response to the Necrons becoming Necrons. It's like, right, we're going to make some Orks now.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did. It's like, well, why would you, unless they had some, I don't know, ideological questions or arguments, and one of them decided to hey, I'll just press the reset button, and the others were like, no, I want to do this my way. Well,
Yeah.
I find it very, very unlikely.
Do you know what it just reminded me of? If they go the route of that, the Old Ones, or a rogue Old One created the Nids and all that, it's basically the Xel'Naga and Zerg storyline from StarCraft. Aemon with the rogue Xel'Naga created, the Zerg, in response to the Protoss or whatever. So it's like, oh god, we're not going to be ripping off StarCraft, are we? Oh dear.
I mean, if we're already ripping off Dune.
I mean, yeah. Just need to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is tier 6, isn't it? So yes, I need to go to the right.
4, 5, 6. Yes.
Yes. So moving on to tier 7, which is the Chaos Guilliman tier.
No, well, that explains these statements. Clone Grim is the real Fulgrim.
He's not. Literally, after Fabius Bell went down to Harmony, he found the gestation tube with the fetus of the clone Fulgrim inside it. It's not the real one.
Why do we even have a clone Fulgrim?
The reason we have a clone Fulgrim is because, back in the day, Fabius Ball, likes to experiment with genetics and all that. He created a crap ton of clones.
As one does.
Funny enough, he actually created a shit ton of Ferrus Manus clones because,
Why?
the reason why is because Fulgrim, after he basically ascended to demonhood, which was ages after he killed Ferrus Manus, he kept asking Fabius, right, make this clone Ferrus Manus because I need to convince myself that I could have convinced Ferrus to turn against the Emperor and join us. And every time he tries to sway a clone of Ferrus Manus onto his side, every single clone has rejected him. And so Fulgrim has basically killed about, several dozen Ferrus Manus clones.
Poor little dearie.
Yeah. Most of the clones Fabius Bell made ended up being rather shit. There was a clone of Fulgrim, there was a squid, there was a clone of Lorgard that was just basically a wall of flesh. The only ones that were genuinely perfect were the Ferrus Manus ones, surprisingly enough, the Fulgrim clone, and the clone of Abaddon. Not Abaddon, Horus. What am I talking about? No. Is Abaddon a clone of Horus? That's a different issue altogether. The answer is no.
Which tier are we on then with that one?
But yeah, no, the clone Grim is not the real Fulgrim because, we saw him get the fetus in the jar, so...
Which reminds me, does every Primarch have a clone? And if yes, does that mean that the second and the 11th one also have clones? And if they have clones, might they be alive?
We know that... excuse me. We know that Fabius cloned, at the very least, the 18 that we know about, or 19 if you include, Alpha and Omegon as two separate entities. We know that at the very least. But all but the Fulgrim clone were destroyed, following the Battle of Harmony. The Fulgrim clone was the only one that actually survived. It was kept underground by, Fabius's, little homunculi, not homunculi, the little, goblin people. Not actually goblins, but his little slaves. I don't know what it's to call. I was going to say homunculi, but it's like, no, that's Drukhari, it's a different thing. Yeah, I mean, homunculi as an actual homunculus, or as I said,
homunculesque.
Yeah, or as they're called in the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, an homunculus. Even though that's not grammatically correct.
Oh, God, yeah, well... Yeah.
I mean, you can say an homunculus, but not an homunculus. It's a homunculus or an homunculus.
Indeed.
Indeed.
As an English teacher, I applaud your dearie.
Oh, thank you. Right, next one.
Next one. Sanguinius is split between the Sanguinor, Mephiston, and Dante.
See, this one... I vaguely recall as it being, tying into the novel Darkness in the Blood and one of the Mephiston novels. It's in regards to entities called the Gold Angel and the Black Angel, I think they are.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the Gold Angel is basically embodied by the Sanguinor, whereas the Black Angel is the embodiment of the Black Rage, which is imprisoned within Mephiston, if I'm remembering correctly. I've not read those books, so I'm just going by third-hand information here, so... If anyone in the comments does know, and I'm getting this completely wrong, let me know. The problem is that we know for certain that a portion of Sanguinius' soul is stuck on the Vengeful Spirit. Because in the second Black Legion novel, which I think was actually called Black Legion, Iskandar Kayan recounts how, he sees the crystalline form of Sanguinius on the Vengeful Spirit just reappearing every now and again. And these crystalline shades that are on the ship, they're the souls of those who died during the Battle of the Vengeful Spirit during the Siege of Terra. Ooh. So, at the very least, a portion of Sanguinius' soul is trapped on the Vengeful Spirit. So, I can see part of his soul being stuck between Mephiston and the Sanguinor, given the Gold Angel and the Black Angel. I can't see Dante, however. I think part of this may come from the end of Devastation of Baal, where Dante had a vision of Sanguinius, saying like, oh, it's not your time, and Dante's like, no, let me die. It's like, God damn it, Billy, let me die. If you recall that episode of South Park from season 1, it's like, my name's not Billy, Dante. It's Corbulo. Anyway, some people take that as fact, as Dante has spoken to Sanguinius. I disagree, because remember, at that point in time, Dante had the shit kicked out of him by the Swarm Lord. He was lying there dying, so I think this is more chalked up to, delusions caused by physical trauma, which does happen.
Yeah, and I think the point of the whole thing in the story is we can never be sure if it was actually what he saw, something that I imagined.
Indeed. But yeah, I like the idea of this one, but if it was just between Sanguinor and Mephiston, you could maybe argue much stronger, but I think that Dante is the weak link in this particular one.
Yeah. In a way, I find it kind of wholesome, in a way, that he would have gotten this kind of same thing that the Emperor has with the Star Child, etc., 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 this kind of splintering of his soul, in a way. It would kind of reaffirm the kind of bloodline that there is between a father and son, but,
yeah, I agree. It would be a nice little parallel, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, moving on to the Gene Stealer tier.
So yes, the Tau are the Emperor's backup plan.
Okay, so considering that the Emperor was effectively, a human supremacist, effectively, why would his backup plan involve aliens? That's the main question you need to ask yourself.
I mean, fish are delicious.
But they got hooves, though, and fish don't have hooves.
Not true. I was just thinking, like, well, we don't know of the deep sea fish, so. But yeah, very true. I'm honestly like, what kind of a backup plan would they be? Like, okay, they don't have as much of a psychic presence in the warp, to be sure.
I think
But,
that is.
like, what?
I think that is the main reason behind this theory, because like they have a weak warp presence. They don't have psychers. Some people seem to think they're immune to chaos, even though we know for a fact that they're not. You know, Paul Malkael and Shaslak Ice have both proven this to be the case. Because Paul Malkael was possessed by a demon of Tzeentch, and Shaslak Ice, fell to the Rage of Khorne. Like, he literally screamed blood for the Blood God before twatting a Lord of Change with the butt of his rifle. Literally, that happened. To be honest, I think in regards to the Tau, their weak warp presence is purely because they are such a young species. Like, they haven't evolved to the point of developing psychic powers yet. Because if you look at the Eldar and the Orks, they're both species that are, at least 65 million years old, these species. And both are extremely potent psychers. The Eldar especially. The Orks have an innate gestalt psychic field. And humanity have been around for, at this point, about a million years or so, give or take. So they've got a fairly decent psychic field as well. The Tau have been around for about, let's be generous and say 500,000 years. You can still say they're still evolving, potentially, considering that, when the Tau were first encountered by the Imperium, they were still in the Stone Age. And then when the Imperium re-encountered them, only a couple of thousand years later, they were a spacefaring civilization, interstellar colonies, which is a massive leap forward, considering, it's been, how many, tens of thousands of years since, we first discovered fire to, landing on a moon.
Yeah.
And the Tau did that in a fraction of the time.
And I mean, it sounds like the Emperor was putting his faith, in this theory at least, to a very advanced toddler. When it comes to, the age of the species, etc., etc., etc. But yeah, if he was arrogant enough not to plan the Horus Heresy properly, how desperate has he, or would he have had to be to, get into the point the Tau, yes, this is our solution.
Someone in the comments noted how that apparently Eldrad had civil relations with the Emperor pre-war, but the problem is that, remember, the Eldari, prior to the fall, the Eldari were the most powerful galactic civilization out there. So it would have been probably more pragmatic from the Emperor's behalf to, try and be on good relations with the Eldari. It's like, hey, if the Eldari, let's be blunt, Eldari, most powerful civilization in the entire galaxy, I want to stay on good terms with them. And then the Eldari fucked it up. It's like, okay, well, they're doing to extinction now, right, we can take over. I may be potentially misrepresenting the Emperor in this regard, but I don't think I'm that far off, personally. I mean, if you like to disagree with me, you're more than welcome to. It's up to interpretation. But yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, then again, nobody ever declared Emperor to be a good person. I kind of get the feeling that Emperor might just have been that kind of a person who's like, yeah, Eldred is my friend, but he's not like the other Eldar. Kind of like, those kind of people. And it's like, okay, just don't, it doesn't matter what sort of ears they have, etc. Anyway, but still, if there was a friendship over there, well, it was most likely because he's such a strategist, or was such a strategist, this Emperor of ours, that there was a kind of a, hidden intent behind all of it.
Regardless, it's a very interesting idea, for him to be extremely pragmatic. But yeah.
Well, he was a very pragmatic person, absolutely. Next one?
Yes, next one, please, yeah.
Alpharius was a traitor, but Omegon is loyal.
Yeah, this is, again, Alpha Legion, so very interesting, very complicated, very convoluted. Now,
Indeed.
there were instances during the Horus Heresy where Alpharis and Omegon were basically sabotaging each other's plans.
Why?
Shits and giggles, I don't know. But like the Serpent Beneath, I think was like the most prominent with like, you know, the destruction of the Tenebrae space station and all that. I think that was the most prominent example. Because this also ties into like one of the oldest fan theories in that Omegon became Janus, you know, one of the first Grandmasters of the Grey Knights, because Omegon was shown to have kept in his possession a suit of plain and unadorned armor. And at the time, we all thought, oh, maybe he's Janus because he's a Primarch who joins the Grey Knights, and everyone went excited about this. And then Games Workshop came around and said, no, actually, Janus is just some random thousand son. Oh, okay, you know.
Okay then.
I mean, again, with the Alpha Legion, it's complicated, to put it bluntly. Like, you could make the argument for this. You can make the argument. But at the end of the day, there is a lot more. It's a lot more complicated than that. Like, there is a lot more to explore. Like, it's one of those plot threads that was introduced, you know, with all this potential, and Games Workshop just didn't bother following it up, like, to its full potential. It's like with the whole Bethesda Narek storyline, you know, that Loyalist word-bearer who set out to kill Lorgar. They set it up, you know, they had him appear, you know, in the second-to-last Siege of Terra novel. Was, okay, Narek's here. Okay, what's going to happen? Absolutely fucking nothing. It was just like, that storyline just collapsed like a flan in the cupboard.
Yeah. It's like, at this point, because of the revisions, etc., what we have in the law and law not being consistent, one could argue that Omegon was a traitor, but Alpharius is loyal as well as this one. But, you know, you never know. Would be an interesting take if this was the case, though. Regardless of whatever way it goes.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's Alpha Legion law, so it's whatever you believe. Like, is it true? Is it not true? Is it true or is it false? Yes.
Who has been writing the most books about the Alpha Legion?
I think it was... I don't think any one person's written the most books, because you have one by like John French, one by Dan Abnett, one by Mike Brooks. Yeah.
Well, no, we don't have just one person who we can ask about this, but we can just ask this question from any one person of those, and they can, you know, fight it over or something.
And then someone else will contradict it completely the next person you ask and all that.
Yep. I can imagine there's just being this whole wall of these red little ribbons or strings or something just connected as, you know, a huge plot line, and then there's just another, you know, blackboard for Alpha Legion, and there's just a huge question mark.
Apparently Mike Brooks has 2 books. Okay, so he might be the best person to ask if he's written the most.
All right, Mike, because of course Mike might be listening. This would be cool if he was. Hi, Mike, if you are. Give me ideas.
Yes, give us answers, please. Anyway, I think time for the next tier, the Malice tier. The tier of
your
Malice.
favorite. So, the Emperor is Malal.
Yeah, Games Workshop don't own the rights to Malal anymore, but so we'll use Malice instead. So it's the Emperor Malice. I don't think so, mainly because, like, you know, the Sons of Malice actually summoned Malice into the material realm.
Yeah.
So it'd be a bit weird, like, you know, you got this Chaos Space and Warband, right, we're going to summon Malice. Oh, it's the Emperor. The fuck? How'd that happen?
Anyone seen the Emperor and Malice in the same room? I don't think so.
And the Emperor's just sitting there saying, like, how'd I get here? I was on the bog. What am I doing here? I'm scared.
Like, hey, what's going on? Oh,
what's going on, guys? Can you just send me back to Terra? I need to plug into the Golden Throne. Okay, thanks, bye.
Yeah, like, I hate to be a bother, but...
Oh, dear.
Oh, goodness gracious. But yeah, would be an interesting take if this indeed was the case, because the only reason I could, or the only way I could see this happening is that the Emperor was a human being, etc. You know, everything happened as it did up till, you know, he was almost killed. And then for some reason, Malal or Malice got into, the place where he could possess the Emperor's spirit or the Emperor's something or other. But how? I don't know.
I'm pretty sure this stems from the fact that, Malice is the chaos god that embodies the entire concept of chaos eating its own tail. Basically, the chaos god of chaos. He's like literally the hierarch of anarchy and terror and all that. So, considering that the Emperor was like, the main enemy of the chaos gods, you can understand the appeal of like having him being, a god that's also like a god of chaos, inflicting chaos for the sake of it being chaos, like, for shits and giggles, essentially.
Yeah, just like people getting very frustrated because there's this one class clown there, like just going rippity, and the four people who try to do whatever they are doing are like, okay, let's band up together and get rid of this thing.
It reminds me of this one comic I saw online. Like, you got a guy with an angel on his shoulder saying, do good things. It's got a devil on his shoulder saying, do bad things. And you got this little orange appears on his head, starts tap dancing, and he goes, who's this? I have no fucking clue.
I think I have one of those.
Right, okay, so next one, please.
Tzeentch wants Chaos to lose.
I mean, if he wants the other Chaos Gods to lose so he can win, the great game, I'm sure he does want to win the great game, but I can't imagine Tzeentch wanting Chaos to lose completely, because remember that Tzeentch is an embodiment of constant change. If Chaos loses, like if the Emperor, say like, the Emperor wins, Chaos is eradicated, that leads to effectively a form of like, deific stagnation, yeah. Deific stagnation. So, and that's something that seems to be like, oh
Nurgle
god.
Still exist then?
Say again, sorry?
Wouldn't Nurgle still exist then?
Well, if Chaos was wiped out, you might have Nurgle Juniors like, hello, I'm Nurgle too. I was born from stagnation. It's like, oh god, no.
Little, a fun-sized Nurgle who you can keep on your lap and pet.
So a Nurgling.
Yes.
It's like, hello, I'm Nurgle. I'm born from stagnation.
And Isha's there like, oh my goodness gracious.
It's like, right,
yeah, we get a super chat there.
Oh yes, Chris, thank you for the super chat. The Grey Knights were Magnus's new legion. That was the implication in the Fury of Magnus novella from Siege of Terror. That was the implication because at the time, as per Buried Dagger, the Grey Knights were being established as the 21st Legion, just one without an actual Primarch. And the Emperor basically said to Magnus, oh, I'll give you a new legion, one free of taint and all that. It's a psychic legion. You're a psychic Primarch. You can have that. But you have to, condemn all the Thousand Sons to death. And Magnus said no. The problem with this, however, is the fact that, as per Echoes of Eternity, the Siege of Terror novel, Vulcan turned around and said, yeah, that conversation never fucking happened. That was all in your head, mate. So effectively, the events of Fury of Magnus are non-canon. Because Vulcan turned around and said, no, you dreamed all that, mate. That's all bullshit. Which seems a bit like, oh, Aaron Dembski Bone just completely took a shit over Graham McNeil. Oh, poor guy.
Yeah. That's what happens when you have multiple authors. It's like, okay, you can ask things from the other author as much as you want, but there is a very good possibility that you're going to shit all over someone's work.
Yeah. It's kind of frustrating when you get like an author setting up something in one book and then another author comes along and goes, nope, don't want that. It's kind of like with like, the new Mortal Kombat games, with like Mortal Kombat X, setting up Dark Raiden, and the MK11 went, nah, fuck that, getting rid of him at the end of chapter 1. It's like, what was the point? What was the fucking point?
Yep.
I mean, you could argue that Vulcan lied, but it does feel a bit like a bit of a slap in the face regardless. But
yeah,
if I'm misremembering the details and Vulcan did actually lie, fair enough. But I'm fairly sure in my recollection that he was actually being sincere to Magnus. He's trying to snap Magnus out of it.
Yeah, like it would fit his image to be the kind of straight and narrow good boy.
Someone said they thought the point was to show how self-deluded Magnus was. I'm pretty sure that actually was the point, yes. I think that's the point I was trying to, get across. I'm not very articulate at times, in live speaking events, so if it didn't come across that way, that's basically what I was trying to convey.
I think the people enjoy the ramblings that we are doing, or you and Neve are doing already in the podcast, so...
Tempest Lord Rayhan, thank you for the donation. The 21st Legion, the 9+10 Marines. So that's Blood Angels and... World Eaters? No, it's 1,000 Suns 10, aren't they? I'm misremembering the bloody numbers.
Sorry.
Yeah, 1,000 Suns were 10, weren't they? Were they? I can't...
Yeah.
No, 10
Go on and check. Sorry, I was getting
10 were
very
the Iron
confused by
Hands. 10 were the Iron Hands, weren't they?
Oh,
Hang on.
yeah. Go and check, because I was very confused because my cell phone just went off. I was like, what's going on? But I was like, oh, right, yeah.
Yeah, it was the Iron Hands. I was right. Someone's saying my boomer is showing. It was like, oh god, I can get arrested for that. Hey,
Darling dearie, even though there's a small age gap between us, you're not a boomer. You're not the age of my parents.
Indeed. Right. If I can get the actual image up, we'll be moving on to the last tier, which is the. I have no idea what the image is. I assume that's the Ascended tier.
I'm just looking at.
You
the
have a
picture,
high-res image of it. What you tell me what it is? I ain't got fucking clue.
Hold on a second. I'm going to zoom in. It just looks something from a Dark Souls game, or looks like something from a Dark Souls game.
Oh, apparently 9+10 equals 21 is a reference to a meme. Oh. I'm very boomer then because I don't know these new memes. I'm not down with you kids and your skibbity toilets and all that.
You go and take yourself to that skippity toilet if you just go to speak like that.
I don't even know what skibbity toilet is still. I mentioned this on the podcast and I have no fucking clue.
I love the fact that with my students and my pupils, I'm the quote-unquote, okay, she's kind of cool, but she doesn't know the memes kind of teacher. And they're like, all right, skippity toilet, you're... Except, like, this is a tangent, and I love this tangent, so pardon my darling dearies. Anyway, I have this grade of fourth year students, and fourth year meaning like the kiddos, the 10-year-olds. And then there's this one boy who was there like when I first met them, and I asked for their names, and he just told me that as his nickname, Alpha. And I was like, oh, well, hello there. Perhaps then I should be called Sigma. And now we have this whole thing going on. Whenever I start the lesson, I'm like, hey, Alpha, you still got your chin? Because I think that children nowadays, quote unquote, do this kind of checking the light of your chin or something like that. I don't know why. Anyway, but we still do this whole thing like, yeah, we both have our chins over here. And it's so adorable because this 10-year-old darling child is there very excited that we have an inside joke of checking that we still have our chins, and then we get to go on with the lesson and do whatever we do. Anyway. But yeah, that's my wholesome teacher tangent. But to the ascended,
apparently it's a Catan. Apparently it's a Catan.
It's a Catan, okay.
Apparently, yeah.
To the Catan theories, we are the Chaos Gods.
I like this one. I really like this one. This mainly comes from, like, you know how at the start of every single 40k book in existence, has that, for millennia, the Emperor of Mankind sat immobile on the throne of blah, blah, blah. And at the end it says, like, the laughter of thirsting gods and all that. There's only war, blah, blah, blah. The thirsting gods, some people have taken to be us, like, actually, like, the players. The people playing the games, there is only war. This is the great game. The great game is Warhammer 40,000. We are the gods, playing the great game. I like this. It's a very meta theory, and I do really like this one.
It is. It kind of reminds me also of this card game called Vampire: The Eternal Struggle. Have you heard of it?
No.
Well, basically, it takes place in the World of Darkness series of Vampire the Masquerade, in which you play gods, you play your, some smaller vampires for yourselves, so that are going to do your bidding, etc. And basically, the idea is that you are this kind of grand old vampire behind all those little vampires that is giving the orders to them. So this kind of meta we are the Chaos Gods, because if you have this kind of army of chaos which you're playing, yeah, technically you might be the Chaos God, which is kind of cool. With that logic, we could all be the Emperor as well. depending on, what sort of army we have.
Again, very meta, and it's very fun. I like it.
It is. I really like it. Oh, also, if we think of the Chaos Gods and their kind of what they represent, there's a little Chaos God in all of us.
There's a little chaos in everyone. That sounds like someone's like slogan for like, buy a new chocolate. There's a little bit of chaos in everyone. I don't know.
Like, whose chocolate are they? Are they like? I hope not Nurgle's.
I know. So long as it's not Dawn's chocolate. If you know, you know.
Indeed, indeed. Shall we tackle the last one?
The last one, please. Yes.
The Emperor was just a random human that got lucky.
I mean, you could argue that. He was just a superpowered human. He was lucky to be born with superpowers. He was lucky enough to essentially, conquer, most of the galaxy. He was lucky enough to, become immortal. Essentially, he was lucky enough to become a god. So you could argue that. I think it's a little too, well, lack of a better term, chaotic for my tastes.
Yeah, and I'm not sure about the random thing because his birth, if we will go, with this theory that we have the shamans sacrificing themselves, was not that random. But yeah, a human that got lucky in, how he was born or what sort of powers he had, how he survived, how he developed, how he got into the point where he also had the intelligence to use his powers to, create the human empire or the Imperium of Man. But then again, just human because the hubris, whatever, however you want to say it, kind of like taking over, and then we have the whole Horus Heresy thing. Yeah.
So basically, lucky is subjective.
Yeah. Indeed.
Like you could make an argument for it, but again, if the shaman origin story is still canon, like it's most likely is, it does kind of add the whole, chosen, destined one element to it, which means he wouldn't just be a random person who got lucky. He was like, the chosen one who got lucky. So, yeah. Yeah.
And I think someone in the chat has a very good point. Random humans usually do not live for millennia.
You could argue it's unlucky ones who do. Yeah.
Indeed. The Emperor was just a random human that got unlucky.
He really was a lamenter. Hey.
Hey. Perhaps they are the true sons of the Emperor.
Perhaps they are. Right. I think that pretty much brings us to the end of this stream. It's only a short one. Again, we're still testing the waters for this, still seeing how this works. So, regardless, we hope you enjoyed it. If we get any last-minute super chats, we will answer them before we leave. Excuse me. But
yeah, and I think like when it comes to this kind of like having a test, drive of how this whole thing works, and when it comes to the time difference that we have, because it's 2 hours, I'm 2 hours ahead of you. So I think it's also very good that we kind of keep the first one a bit more short, and that naturally, like for instance, when we're doing the podcasters, it usually takes us, a bit more than just an hour to do that. But
it's only
still,
about 2.5 hours, yeah.
Yeah, indeed. So this kind of live reacting, etc., because this is something that we haven't done, because I also have the chat open over here, and I've been silently giggling at some of the messages that you guys have been sending. Very wonderful indeed. I think it's a very good thing that the first one is kind of this kind of, let's try it out for an hour.
And I know there's a lot more 40k icebergs out there, so we can probably tackle some of the bigger ones in future. So this is quite a small iceberg, all things considered. So it would be interesting to try and tackle a bigger one with some of the things that haven't been mentioned on this particular list. So, yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That would be lovely. Please send us those, unless you have one already, Rem.
Not as of yet, but I'm sure someone will send me one. But yeah, there will be some more live streams going forward in the future. I do plan on doing some video game streams, as I mentioned earlier in the video. We're just trying to get some of the games work, because some of the games, for some reason, have like issues working on Streamlabs. Like, they're very temperamental. Like, we managed to get Deathwing working absolutely no problem, but then Space Marine was a bit twitchy. Legacy of Dawn didn't work at first, but I managed to get it working, even it's just a little bit twitchy. But Legacy of Dawn might be a good one to go for, because I don't see many people doing that game. It's like a choose-your-own-adventure type game.
Ooh, that sounds lovely.
So we can probably do that together in the future, yes. But anyway, we shall call it there, and until next time, ladies and gentlemen, we hope you enjoyed this. And yeah, I've already said until next time so many times. Anyway.
That's all right. That is why we practice.
Yes. Anyway, this has been Remleiz from 40k Theories.
And this has been Naerina, also from 40k Theories.
And we'll see you again next time.